Welcome everybody. This is Mike Klingler, and I'm going to be discussing cryptocurrency wealth building. I have the Bitcoin symbol here because it's the granddaddy of them all, right? It leads the brand of cryptocurrency. But there's actually a lot more going on behind the scenes than just that. I know a lot of you know about that. Some of you don't. Some of you have been involved with ICOs, which are all these other cryptocurrencies coming to market. There's just all kinds of wealth being made. It's incredible. I'm going to show you that. I'm gonna have to talk to different groups here because I know I've got advanced people, I've got beginners, I've got everybody, I've got people who are fearful, I've got that middle class condition mindset, and they're worried about regulators and what can change. I'm gonna talk about all of it. So sit back and enjoy the show, maybe take some notes, try not to get in analysis paralysis, but just kind of take it in because I'm gonna show you how I and many others that I've been working with are making a killing. I mean, just there's never been anything like it. And I'm going to establish how it's happening, what the risks are, and how we've minimized those risks as we've learned things as we went along. I'm going to pass that on to you today. So the main focal point of this is all going to circle back around to Davor coin. And whether you've heard of Davor coin or not, it's an autopilot strategy that allows anybody to just kind of leverage the experience and the setup that these experts have in the ICO and arbitrage markets, and I'll talk about what those are a little bit more, just how the profits are generated, and allows them to, you're lending to them and then they're paying you incredible returns back because they know how to leverage the market. Now, I don't care if you're skeptical, I don't care if you have a really, high threshold to risk, a really low, threshold to risk. I'm going to break all this down so that one way or another, wherever you fall in that category on risk threshold, you can get incredible returns and do it in a way that is comfortable to you and that allows you to accomplish the goals that you set your mind on. It's really, really incredible what's happening. I want to make sure that everybody understands it. Those of you who are advanced, obviously I have to talk about some things that you're very well aware of. But I believe that I'm going to be breaking things down. They're going to be extremely helpful to you to take advantage of this autopilot platform. You're already, if you're advanced, aware of these autopilot platforms. I want to help you who are advanced understand why Davor coin is going to dominate the market. If you're in Bitconnect or are knowledgeable about that, if you've been knowing what's going on with SEC regulators like in Texas and British Columbia, Canada, and how that's affecting all of this, I'm going to be able to break that stuff down, but you have to sit through the other stuff I'm going to cover for the beginners. And I think it's going to be helpful for you to see how I frame that for beginners so that they can easily understand it, because I know a lot of you who are doing extremely well. I've got friends that are turned a couple thousand into $1 million already in the ICO market. For those of you that have been in that circle, I'm sure it's been frustrating for you to be able to articulate to those that you love around you of how they can get involved and minimize risk. I think you're going to notice the way I explain this to those that are beginners, you're going to be able to pick up on how you can help people understand how to move forward and be really successful with it. So it's going to be a longer webinar today, or video I should say, but I can't encourage you enough to sit through it. Get through it, understand what's going on, and I've got something here that I think is going to be rather significant in terms of value for those that are advanced and beginners and everyone in between. So some illustrative examples I'm going to be sharing today. I'm going to come back around to this a little bit later, but I'm going to talk about how you can churn $100 into $10,000. Yes, really, in a relatively short period of time, and relative to other options out there, an incredibly short period of time. $1,001 into $100,000 in an even shorter period of time. Strategies for seven-figure returns, really. And then I'll talk about minimizing risk, maximizing gains, and other little nuance strategies that you can employ to fall anywhere that you want to with your goals, with eyes wide open about what the risks are and how to minimize those risks with these strategies that I'll be sharing with you to hit the target and be able to move forward and navigate this whole industry of opportunity and have a lot more to work with from what you're making with this. Okay, so for those that know a little bit about lending platforms, Davor coin, it's exceptional. It's paying 7 days a week, and I know that Bitcoin already did that and others too, but USI did not. So those that were in USI, this pays on the weekends as well. It pays higher returns, much higher than USI, has been steadily much higher than Bitconnect. Again, I'm going to explain how they're doing so well, and why the risk is minimized with Davor coin as well. And then also for those that were in USI, you get 100% capital returned. So this is a huge variable. There's many, but another big variable for why this is so much less risk than something like USI was, which was something that I had to learn along the way, that you get your capital returned even after you get the daily return. So it's on top of it. Now, again, those of you who don't understand how these platforms work, this will all make sense later. I just wanted to speak to those that do know a little bit about the platforms for a moment, particularly USI, because they did things very differently. This pays much more, and you get 100% of your capital that you put in back at the end of your contract, in addition to the daily returns, which are 7 days a week and not 5, and much higher. Those of you in Bitconnect are used to that. And those of you who are in Bitconnect or who have been, I'm going to address a lot of the things that have been coming up for you as well, and show you why Davor coin is definitely a place to park at least part of your portfolio, and it's going to really, really skyrocket from here. I'm going to explain that, break it down, and show again why the risks are low, the returns are high, and I'm going to address some of the big concerns in the industry. Okay, so here's some of the big concerns in the industry, right? How can returns be so high? I know it's more of a beginner question, but I'm going to talk about that. What about risks? This is more for the more advanced and intermediate, and maybe even some of the beginners, like SEC regulators. A lot of people know in the United States and Canada, this is a bigger issue, and then some smaller countries in Asia, like South Korea, for example. But it's the bigger issue for US and Canada, because the SEC and some state regulators like Texas just love to go after companies don't fit the mold. This is an innovative, transformative industry, and just like any past innovative, transformative industry, incredible opportunity like the internet boom in the 90s, right? But regulators go sniffing around, don't understand it, and try to force an old archaic model onto the new world, and it creates complication. And for some people, that's scary and risky, and it does require fluidity for you to be able to move and shift and be aware. I'm going to break it all down so you understand it, and so you know how to navigate it going forward, so that you've minimized the risk significantly. You understand what's going on, and it's not a fear thing. A lot of middle class mindsets are really fear driven. And I came from a middle class mindset. I have loved ones that are still in that mindset, and so I understand and I sympathize with it. But I'm going to see if I can help those of you who are stuck in the middle class mindset while I still address the more advanced, people in ICOs that are way beyond all that. I want at the same time help the middle class fear-driven mindset understand how the world works a little bit. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to expand on that a lot more in another video, but at least touch upon it today by helping you understand these risks, but understand how we can minimize them and not be afraid of them, but actually use them to our advantage in many ways, and know how to make good decisions to allow us to get these incredible returns in this incredibly transformative industry without so much risk and fear. And then where's the money coming from, right? It's kind of related to the first question of how can returns be so high. Exactly where's the money coming from that allows a platform like Davor coin to be able to drive this the way that they do? I'm going to talk about that really clearly. But first, we're going to circle back around to Bitcoin, because as I said at the beginning, and as we all know, it is still the granddaddy of them all. Bitcoin is leading the brand for the blockchain technology. There's no question about that. And a lot of people are looking at it and they're saying, man, it's already gone so high. How could it possibly go any higher? The reason why it's important to discuss this, especially, I want to address this for those of you who are more advanced, is because when we're looking at the whole cryptocurrency market, the health of and the volatility and the issues around Bitcoin have a tremendous amount to do with the stability and the opportunity in the entire cryptocurrency market. Now, that may one day change, and that's up for debate, but right now it is leading the pack in terms of brand and people's awareness. So that's why it's important to kind of start here as the foundation, and address a common misconception that Bitcoin's already gone up so high so it can't go up anymore. There will be corrections. There will be ups and downs. But if you understand the industry and you understand the magnitude and the transformative impact that the blockchain technology that is driving Bitcoin, or I should say that is underneath Bitcoin, that's what Bitcoin is. It's a blockchain technology. It was the first to be packaged and brought to market in a big way, and it's leading the branding, as I said. When it is in a position to lead the pack of something as transformative as blockchain technology, it's basically what everyone is looking to. Kind of like how on the international markets, people kind of base everything off the dollar. Again, that could change. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But right now and for quite some time, we can expect it to continue to dominate. So we need to look to it. We need to understand it when we're looking at other cryptocurrencies and looking at, kind of establishing for people, where's this all going to go and how big is it going to be? If you see it's going on this parabolic meteoric rise, and you might look at that and go, oh man, it's going to drop, it's going to correct. But what you have to understand is it has been correcting. It's just going so far because it's impacting so many different markets, economies, and uses, the blockchain technology itself, and Bitcoin being the leading brand that people are aware of. The scale and scope of how big it can reach and how high it can go is beyond anything historically, in models that we've had in the past that we can really look to. It is going to go much higher, is my point. If we look back a little bit here in history to get a feel for this, and again, sit with me if you're advanced and you know all this already, we need to address those that are brand new before we can get into the details of Davor coin and how we know that it's such an incredible opportunity, so people understand where the money's coming from and how big this is going to go and how secure it really is. July 1st, 2010 to January 12th, 2013, check this out. So, it started out very, very low, and I don't know exactly what the lowest it was. I think down in the dollars, of course, at one point. But we look here as we approach July 2011, and it spiked up well over $30, which right now comparatively is extremely low, right? Massively low. But look what it did right away. It corrected. And when we look at the longer chart, I want you to notice you can't even see this blip on the screen. But if you were one of the people who bought at 30 back then, and then not even a day later, it dropped down to, down to a couple bucks. Let's say, I can't tell exactly what it was. It looks like around, if you look at my cursor, dropped to $3 within a day that it was over 30. You lost 10 times what you put in. So if you put in $1,000 just before July 11th, and maybe it was late June, I can't tell exactly when it was, around late June. Late June 2011 is actually what that was. If you put it in there before this marker, it dropped way down to just a couple of bucks not long after, is my point. Looks like these aren't days, sorry, these are years, 2012. But my point is, in a very short period of time, people lost 10 times their investment. People were panicking. You need to understand that it's corrected many times. Now, of course, if you had done that, if you had bought back then, everyone would have thought you were an idiot if you did it. And yet, where would you be today? If you had bought at $30 and now, was it 20,000 recently? Now it's somewhere around 14,000. You would have made, exponentially more on your investment. But during that correction, it didn't look like it. So what you need to understand is there's going to be corrections that look really scary in the short term, and that's going to continue to happen. Let's look at the next slide. There's another one here just before January 2014, and it was up over $1,000 a share, or sorry, a Bitcoin, and then it dropped by January 2015, about a year later, all the way down to about just under 250. So again, people lost a huge sum of money in that period of time, and of course, everyone around them would have been saying, "Yep, I knew it. I knew it was going to collapse," and yet, if you had bought it over 1,000 at the highest point in history at that time before January 2014, and then as long as you held on to it, didn't give into the fear mongering, and understood blockchain and understood the magnitude of this and the scope of this, then you would have been sitting pretty now, and recently it went up to 20,000. You would have multiplied it by 20 times if you sold then, or now it's at about 14,000 at the time of this recording. It's 14 times the return in a very short period of time, 14 times. When people at the time would have been telling you, yep, it's collapsing, it's a bubble. Look, it's really important to understand there's good bubbles and there's bad bubbles. If you look to the internet boom in the late 90s and early 2000s, that was a massive bubble. And there were all kinds of opportunities that didn't last the test of time that still made people's fortunes. And if you look back in history before that, at every major transformative boom and developing industry, even back to the railroads being built across the United States to the West, and all of the booms and busts that created, that's where the opportunity is. A middle-class mindset that's fear-driven cannot partake in those unless they make a shift, a calculated shift in the way they think. You will miss every great opportunity in your life. The same fears and the same things were always there throughout every major opportunity. What I'm going to say is, I'm going to show you today some strategies that are so low risk that still allow you to do exceptionally well at low risk. So even if that's you, and even if it's so scary to put in $100, it from my perspective is idiotic not to do it. Now, I don't mean that derogatorily. It just doesn't make any sense not to do it. I mean, that's this deep primal fear stopping people from at least putting in some, a week's worth of entertainment money or a month's worth of entertainment money if you're on the poverty line. Anybody can do exceptionally well in this. You might make a few mistakes or what have you, but if you invest what you can afford to lose, which could be your entertainment money for a week, you can still get exceptional returns. Even if you're on the poverty line and you've got to use your entertainment money that you would save up for 3 months, you can change your life around with this. And those of you who have some money set aside that can take a little bit more risk, if you follow the strategies I'm going to show you, you can do extraordinarily well. And for some of you that follow some of the strategies that I'm using, set up future generations of your family for life. I mean, it's absolutely incredible what you can accomplish. My point here is Bitcoin has been correcting. Remember when we look back at those previous slides, there were these major corrections, but you can't even see them here because it's gone up so much. And what you have to understand is going to keep going up so much. John McAfee and lots of other people were saying it's going to go up to over 1 million of Bitcoin. So people say, nah, 500,000 within a couple of years. Many people believe 40,000 to 60,000 this year in 2018. It's kind of irrelevant. The point is, and I'm not going to go into all the details about blockchain technology, which is what Bitcoin's built upon. I'll just say in short, it's a completely new way that people can trade value, they can exchange and interact. That's going to affect every economy, every market, every niche, and has already and will continue to create completely new solutions to problems we didn't even know we had. Kind of like the iPhone, when you open it up and you see apps. 20 years ago, nobody would have known that an app on an iPhone would have solved people's problems and been million and even billion-dollar businesses. It's the same deal, but on a whole nother scale, because it literally impacts every exchange interaction people have, and it decentralizes. So everything from banks to institutions that have had control over things totally takes that away. And there are some blockchain technologies being developed for those institutions, but what the blockchain also represents, as it does for Bitcoin and many others, is peer-to-peer interaction, where there is no decentralized entity controlling everything and taking all the money and the interaction. So it affects everything from buying tickets to your favorite events, like you don't need a ticket master anymore, onto really everything that you've ever purchased or bought, real estate, music downloads. And like I said, so many things that as you get into learning about ICOs and these new organizations that are launching these new uses for the blockchain, things that we never even thought of before. So it's bigger than the internet by an exponential scope and scale. And because of that, and if you think back to the internet, and when you looked early on at how, that bubble, that wonderful bubble of the internet boom started to go up, and then there were corrections, and it just kept going up, and it just blew people's minds. Then you can start to get an idea of what this is going to do, and that it's still very, very early. I want to also say Bitcoin may not always dominate. Some of its naysayers are right on that point. Just like Yahoo didn't always dominate the search engines, even though they were first and they were dominating initially. Then Google came along. That could happen. But that doesn't mean people didn't make millions investing in Yahoo. Of course they did. And it also doesn't mean that people who invested and made millions in Yahoo didn't have an advantage. Of course they did, to knowing what was going to happen next. If you sit on the sidelines, guys, you're not going to know what the moves are going to be next. You know, was Apple always dominating? No, Microsoft used to dominate in that market, and then Apple came along. These kinds of shifts are going to happen, and that's where the opportunities are. And it will be the players that are watching and that are in the game. Even if you have to start with something small that you're comfortable with, it'll be you who are able to see what's going to happen next. You're able to kind of pay attention more when you're involved. And when you're making incredible returns, like people were with Yahoo early on, you can take those returns and invest it into other things. There'll be things booming and busting all the time. But right now, because of the scope and scale of this, and because it is significantly, exponentially even bigger than the internet boom, the level, it's almost incomprehensible, the money that's being made. I'm going to try to break that down to you today, and then show you how you can leverage it on autopilot for those of you who want to sit around and study stuff all day, or for those of you who have been playing in ICOs, how you can leverage Davor coin and this platform, set it up on autopilot, get incredible returns by leveraging them and investing all this. And then with those returns, you can go start to dabble with those incredible returns you're getting back, dabble with ICOs on your own. No matter how you look at it, though, my point before I move on to the next slide is Bitcoin is leading the brand. Anyone who says the blockchain technology is amazing, sometimes you get these people on television, although it's less and less now, saying the blockchain's amazing, but Bitcoin isn't. Bitcoin's a scheme, a scam, but blockchain's amazing. You know that they're being moronic, because I mean, there's nothing wrong with them doing that, but what they're doing is they're positioning themselves to take out the number one, while they tried, because they didn't get in on it. They weren't early in Bitcoin, so they're trying to knock down number one brand and come out with their own cryptocurrency, or maybe they're working with the Federal Reserve to, maybe they're a bank working with the Federal Reserve to create a blockchain in their own cryptocurrency. Whatever it may be, they're trying to jockey for position because they didn't get in on Bitcoin. That's why they're saying that. But it doesn't make any sense to say blockchain technology is awesome, transformative, going to change the world, which no one intelligent has ever disagreed with. It doesn't make any sense to say that and then say, but the first one to come to market and to innovate that and to package it into, that's leading the whole branding of that blockchain, is a scheme. That doesn't make any sense. So, it's not hard just to open your eyes, see what's going on. You compare this to what's happened in the past with the internet boom, how people responded. People were saying, oh, these aren't going to be profitable. And then you now look at these internet companies that are putting brick and mortar businesses out of business, buying up, now Amazon buying up Whole Foods. You see how people respond when new transformative things like this come into our lives. You look back, you should be able to see what's happening. It's not rocket science. So I'm not going to spend too much time establishing that. I'll just go on to say these ATMs are popping up everywhere where you can put in money and get your Bitcoin back. There's these credit cards backed by Visa that you can now use. When I go to a restaurant, when I buy gas, when I buy anything, I use my BitPay card. Now, a lot of people said, oh, but didn't Visa just shut them down? There was this issue in Europe. It had nothing to do with Bitcoin. It had nothing to do with cryptocurrency, like the new spins it in to be. What it had to do with was the company that runs BitPay and some others violated some Visa terms that had nothing to do with the cryptocurrency side. So they stopped working the BitPay card in Europe, at least for now, but it still works in the United States, and it had nothing to do with cryptocurrency. And the point is, there's tons of these cards. I still use my BitPay card, by the way, and Visa put out an issue. This it has nothing to do with other credit cards that we're working with and debit cards that we're working with that are sponsored by Visa that deal with cryptocurrencies. The point is, this is going to be these little things that are happening all the time as the industry develops. But here's another card by 10X that's in Europe and in everywhere else, working fine over there, and they're about ready to open in the US. But all throughout the world, there are these cards like I'm using, and I've turned 1,000 or more people onto using the BitPay card. We're all using them here in the US, and I know they're all over Europe, other ones like this 10X one, that allow you to spend Bitcoin. So people that are saying, oh, you can't spend it, they just don't know that I am. I'm standing right next to them buying my dinner or buying gas, I'm spending Bitcoin. This is gonna, it's not rocket science, guys. This is happening. And you see all these, famous talking heads talking it up. And like I say, any naysayers just don't own any or just aren't being transparent or just jockeying for position to come out with their own cryptocurrency. But from Bill Gates to Sir Richard Branson to Ben Bernanke, and the list goes on and on. Now, hedge fund managers, you name it, they're all saying it's big. I mean, you really have to be really out of it by now to not understand that where this is at now, at the time of recording this, somewhere around 14,000 something, is nothing compared to where it's going to be. It's just the beginning. And if you don't get in the game and you don't get involved and you don't take it seriously, at least with something, even if it's small, like I say, your entertainment money for a month, I don't know what to say. You're never going to be able to take advantage of an opportunity like this again. It should be obvious. Now, what I'm going to be talking about is Davor Coin, which is a platform that goes beyond just Bitcoin. Bitcoin's involved. Bitcoin you could consider a cryptocurrency that's leading the brand of all cryptocurrencies right now, at least. But there are so many other cryptocurrencies, and there's so much more going on behind the scenes that I'm going to break down today. What Davor Coin allows you to do is you lend, and I know some of you are already familiar with this, but I need to break this down for people that are new, is you lend Davor Coin, which is another cryptocurrency, to Davor Coin, which you obtain by purchasing with Bitcoin. So it starts with Bitcoin, then you get Davor Coin. Well, you can get Davor Coin with other cryptocurrencies too, but usually we start with Bitcoin. And you're basically lending them Davor Coin. That's the method of exchange that they use. And then with that Davor Coin, they're basically investing with their expertise. I'm going to talk about how we know their expertise is actually worth something. Like we can know that they know what they're doing, and I'll break that down. And they are doing what's called arbitrage, and they're also doing ICOs, and they're making incredible returns. I'm going to break all that down. Like, where's the money coming from? How are they making incredible returns? We took a glimpse here at Bitcoin a moment ago. We're going to take a closer look at all of this and see where the money's coming from, because I think it's really important to understand on a foundational level before you can really feel safe and secure about moving forward with something like this. So I mentioned ICOs and arbitrage, but when you work with a platform like Davor Coin, you set it up on autopilot. You can walk away and let them take care of it, and they're just giving these insane returns daily that you can turn into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies or back into cash. And I do mean insane returns, and I'm going to show that to you. And again, you can set it up on autopilot. Now, I know some of you who are more advanced want to be able to keep playing in ICOs, because I've got friends, for example, that just started like 2 months ago, and they've already turned a few $1,000s into $1 million. These aren't unusual stories at all. And I remember talking to one just today, in fact, and he said, I asked him, what percentage of the ICOs that you're picking, ICOs being, new cryptocurrencies coming to market that people can purchase at very low prices that then skyrocket and then you sell. I said, honestly, though, what percentage of the ICOs that you're buying into end up having these insane returns? I said, is it like 10%? Like maybe still 9 out of 10 aren't doing so good? He said, no, 96% was the number he gave me. And this is a stand-up guy. I mean, and I'm hearing this across the board. For now and for a pretty, relatively long period of time from now, we've got an incredible opportunity with these ICOs and arbitrage trading. But it takes a little time to figure out how to navigate it yourself. And again, those of you who are more advanced, and you don't have to do it, is what I'm saying. You can use a platform like Davor Coin and let them do it for you and give you incredible returns back. But my point is, those of you who are more advanced that are doing ICOs, I still encourage you to sit tight through this, even if you've heard of Davor Coin from someone else or what have you, or understand these platforms, because I want to break it down for you and share with you how you can leverage Davor Coin and feel safe and secure about it in terms of what regulation's going and all that stuff, and use strategies, employ strategies that can be extremely rewarding, and have it on autopilot, and then use that money as seed money for some of your ICOs. So whether you're advanced or you're a beginner, beginners being somebody who I don't recommend just jumping into ICOs right away, because it's really time consuming and it can be pretty complex and to navigate. So if you're a beginner, I suggest the autopilot strategy first, but also those of you who are more advanced, I suggest looking at how you can leverage this to get more to work with quickly to invest into the ICOs that you are. Let's first talk about arbitrage trading for people who don't know what that is, because this is one of the ways that Davor coin is making these incredible profits. This is a snapshot actually that a friend of mine took on his computer screen from the news showing how this works. It's a really good representation. It says Bitcoin prices as of 10:50 a.m. and I think this was on December, I don't know what day, December 2017, just not long ago from recording this. So these are Bitcoin prices across several different exchanges, 5 different exchanges, Kraken, GDAX, Gemini, Bitfinex, Bitstamp. These are 5 of many different exchanges where you could purchase Bitcoin along with other cryptocurrencies if you wanted to. But these are different prices, right? 17,212 on Kraken, GDAX showed 17,150, Gemini 17,039, these other 2 down in the 16,000s. So across these different exchanges, there's different prices for the same Bitcoin. And so these large organizations that can move large sums of money around very quickly are able to just instantly make money all day long, similar to how banks use software programming and now AI and an administration that they've got set up, an administration to be able to move money around very quickly on NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange almost just automatically, and they're making money all the time, buying and selling and just doing what the systems tell them to do. These other organizations are able to do the same thing, like Davor coin. And so when you have a ton of Bitcoin in Kraken and you sell it and within a nanosecond later, buy the same Bitcoin for 16,957, you just made a tremendous amount of money with no risk because you're just moving it from one exchange to another. So as long as you can spot this, if you have the administration and the infrastructure to be able to do that all day long, you're making huge profits. You just need the capital to work with. And again, that's where we come in. We lend them our Davor coin, and then they turn that into other cryptocurrencies that they're constantly just trading through arbitrage, and they're making incredible sums of money all day long, just moving it around extremely fast, constantly, over and over and over again. That's one form of how they're making insane amounts of money. The other, which Davor coin is exceptional at, is ICOs. And these are, again, cryptocurrencies that are coming to market for the first time, often in pre-launch. So only a certain network of people know about them. And there's such a high demand for them that they usually just end up selling way early to raise huge sums of money. I mean, tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions, sometimes $1 billion or more within months. And there's a huge number of people who wanted in who just couldn't buy it fast enough. This is happening all the time. The demand for these are so high. We're talking on a global scale all throughout the world. So the market is just incredible and everybody wants to be involved. So everybody that knows about it. And because people are seeing these returns, it's just growing more and more. Now, this is similar to what we saw in the internet boom with the penny stocks of internet, but on a whole different scale. Whole different scale. And again, a lot of them are crap, but people are still making a killing. And then a lot of them are exceptionally good and have real value, and those will have long-term benefits. But it's incredible that because the demand for these is so high, how these people who are launching the ICOs are in the driver's seat, and they're literally like raising tens of millions of dollars in minutes and have literally thousands of people that wanted to buy it that couldn't just because it went so fast. And then it goes to market, and then it just keeps going up. Sometimes after a certain point in time, it goes down when people realize, oh, it was a crap one, just like with penny stocks or during the internet boom. But in many cases, if you know what to look for, you can pick one that will continue for a very, very long time. But a lot of people don't even care because it's just such a moment in history where the demand for people moving into this market is so high and the innovation and everything is so incredible in terms of new ideas of how to use and apply the blockchain. So much is being poured into this. Remember when I talked about good bubbles and bad bubbles? A good bubble is like the internet boom, or when the railroads went in, or the gold rush that created businesses like Wrangler's jeans and Levi's jeans, for example. These booms all throughout history. Let's use the internet as the most recent example. There were bubbles everywhere, but it created innovation. It's part of the process. And sure, that a lot of the companies during the internet boom weren't any good, But through that process came the winners. But during the process of when the boom was happening, a lot of people got wealthy on even the ones that busted. It's just so flush with opportunity, and will be for some time now because it's just started. That it's just ridiculous, even if you have a low tolerance to risk, not to be involved to some level or another. So anyway, ICOs are the big hot thing right now. The challenge is there's so many, and I don't know if you can read this. I'm just going to read these to you. Here's a list of some big ones, percentage-wise, what their gains have been since their launch date. Like this one launched in 2013. We're 2,774,000% increase. I'm not even going to get out the calculator. It's insane. 2,774,000% increase. This one's 833,600% increase. This one's 569,000. This goes on and on and on. This is where the money's coming from, guys. Again, it's hard to wrap your mind around. Let me go to this article real quick. It's hard to wrap your mind around until you really understand what the blockchain is doing. Once you understand what the blockchain is doing and that it's touching every economy, every market, every niche, and innovating new solutions to problems we didn't even know existed, that it's on a scale way beyond the internet, then you start to understand. But just looking at this article, here's some of the top ones, just in just a few. 1,477% ROI on investment, 332,500%. I mean, get out the calculator. I don't want to do that now, but just enter in $1,000 and go times 332,000%. I mean, we're talking about turning a very small amount of money into millions. Here's another 152,000. Now, these are the big names. I understand that. I'm going to talk about the smaller names that are doing incredibly well too. I know a lot of you have heard of these and you're like, oh, those are the unique ones. There's a lot of them having an insane return. Davor coin being one of them. A lot of you saw Bitconnect over the last year or so skyrocket. Davor coin skyrocketed in the last couple of weeks and will continue. It's not just the big ones, guys. It's endless right now, and this is going to continue for some time. And again, for those of you who are concerned around regulation and SEC stepping in, because of course they want to control the game, right, of how money gets raised, that is a concern. But I'm going to talk about how we can minimize that risk, and if it were to happen, how we can know we're safe with Davor coin. I'll talk about that in a little bit. These returns are absolutely incredible. Let me go back to my chart here. So my point is, that's where the money is coming from. It's hard to wrap our minds around because there's been no time in history other than the internet boom where we could even begin to comprehend the speed at which this is happening, that people are moving into this new market and innovating, and the amount of money that's coming into it. Again, these are just the same things I just showed you, but the charts, I mean, just, we're talking about turning thousands of dollars or $1,000 investment into millions. But let's talk about the ones that people don't even know about. This is happening every day. This is just one day's biggest gainers. One of these had in 24 hours a gain of 2,800% in one day. 100% is doubling your money. 2,800%, 520%. I mean, here's way down here, doubling your. These are even names that people don't even know of. I mean, this is happening all the time. This is just a snapshot of one day, 24-hour gains. You have to understand the scope and scale of this. Bitconnect, I mentioned, was down near zero in April of last year, and then 350 was over 450 towards the end of the year. By the way, Bitconnect was really kind of the first to develop a model similar to Davor coin. Davor coin is brand new, so obviously huge opportunities here for those of you in Bitconnect that want to start moving over to Davor coin. And anyone else, those of you who are orphans from USI, that they're no longer allowing promotion in the United States or Canada, huge opportunity. And Bitconnect gives you an idea of what's going to happen, because the model of Davor coin is very similar to Bitconnect, but they've made improvements, and there's things that are in place, like their own coin that's already at $1 billion with a B market cap. Davor coin, look at this, the one that is the platform I'm talking about, that gives you incredible security. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It actually launched under $1 in the pre-sale, but then when it went public, it started around 20, and now it's actually, last I looked at it, 125. And this, it went public around December 20th, and here, not even a month later, January 10th, it's well over 90. And actually, today's January 11th or 12th, it's at 125. Now, might it correct? Of course. See, they correct sometimes. They correct, but then they go back up. And are they all going to go up forever? No, but there's reasons to look at these and know which ones have the probability of keep going up. And I don't even want to go there because this isn't even about you having to figure that out. We trust Davor Coin to do that for us, and I'll talk a little bit later about how we know they can do it. In fact, I'll even mention it right now. Any organization that can launch a coin, and they launched it at under $1 just before it went public here in November of 2017. Any company that can launch a coin for under $1 and then raise their, I can't remember if it was 10 million, it was somewhere around that mark of raising $10 million just within a couple of days, and they only had it open at brief little moments with this huge demand of people wanting more, and then they stopped selling even though they could have sold more because they want to hang on to them as the price goes up. That's what companies do, just like with stock. Any company that knows how to do that and then be able to support a platform like Davor Coin and have the success that they've had and grow it to over $1 billion market cap. So they now have hundreds of millions of dollars to tap into to develop their business and to pay these returns during difficult times and so forth, and offer security for us. Any company, an organization that knows how to do that knows obviously about the ICO market. Like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist and get all technical and analytical to figure this stuff out. They obviously know what they're doing. Now you can, and I know a lot of you do that are advanced about this stuff, you can go and research these things. Like, there's these sites like this one, let's go look at it real quick, where you can research ICOs and you can check it out. You can go here, you can go to the view website. These are what are gonna launch. This is like ones in pre-launch. By the way, in the United States, a lot of them don't allow the United States to be involved. Another reason why Davor Coin's awesome. Let them do it for you. Here's ICOs that already exist. You can read about how they're applying the blockchain technology towards all these other different uses. Here, number one, it says decentralized marketplace for programmatic advertising. Another use of the blockchain this other one's using is a global transportation access pass. I mean, it's endless. It's absolutely insane. Here's the ones that are in pre-launch. They haven't come out yet. You can get these for really, really cheap, like pennies, and they can be worth $10, $100 not too long later. The challenge is you got to go read all of these. You got to read their report, read what people were saying. It's a lot of time. So I know a lot of you want to do that, and again, if you're advanced and you're doing that and you're doing extremely well, that's awesome. You should continue doing it, but I'm still going to encourage you to consider learning, what I have to say here about Davor Coin, because you can use it in an autopilot sort of way. Get this, and I know a lot of you know this, but really consider get the seed money coming in and then use that for your ICOs. And then those of you who are beginners, this is a great way to enter into this world. It's a great way to enter into it, start making incredible returns through Davor Coin, set it up on autopilot. And then if you want to, you can start using some of those gains to invest on your own into ICOs. It's hard to get into all the pre-launches. Some of them don't allow it in the US because they're concerned about what the SEC might do in the future and they're just playing it safe, but a lot of them are available. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute for those of you that have that really low risk threshold and have an issue. I don't want you to know that you would have had an issue with every developing industry. So I really encourage you to go over that because the rewards outweigh the risk if you do it right. I'll talk about strategy in a little bit. So Davor Coin is doing the ICOs for us, doing the arbitrage for us. We can set up on autopilot, get incredible returns. I'm going to talk about those returns in a minute and give you some illustrative examples of how you can accomplish some incredible goals just with them, and then use that seed money to invest into ICOs or for your kids' college education or retirement or whatever it is that you have your goals set for. Incredible opportunity here with Davor Coin. Now, again, we can know that they know what they're doing based on the fact that they just launched their own coin and prove they know what they're doing by being able to see that coin launch and within about a month go to $1 billion market cap. So we know that they have the networks, the knowledge to leverage ICO launches with the money we lend them, or with the DAV, we lend them DAV coin. That's why it's not a security. I know some of that's still up for debate and it could change in time, but as it stands right now, there's no precedent for a model like this that's using cryptocurrency, where we're lending them cryptocurrency and then they're only touching cryptocurrency and then they're paying us in cryptocurrency. There's no major precedent, a court precedent that that's a security. And until there is, this is free game. I'll talk about risk in a minute. I'll talk about how we can minimize risk. I'll talk about how we can know that we're safe, at least relatively safe in terms of having this developing industry and things changing all the time. Very, very safe with Davor Coin. I'll talk about that in detail. I do want to say, when I talk about how much you can earn and all that, I'm just giving illustrative examples. These are not guarantees. When I talk about what I've earned in this video or other videos, I'm giving them as an educational, component, not to tell you that's exactly what you're going to earn. Obviously, things can change and adjust, and I'll talk about that more here, but hopefully you'll see enough to know that, again, even if you're using your entertainment money, there's huge opportunities here, even if you have a very low risk threshold. I'll talk about strategies in a bit, but I need to explain things in a way that you can understand them. But while I'm doing that, I don't want any of this to be construed as a guarantee of what you'll earn. Not at all. The variable rate that they pay per day can change. So for example, let's look down at the bottom of this for a second. Let me make this larger. Here it's showing you with the variable rate when we lend them DAV. Again, and by the way, if you don't even have Bitcoin yet to buy DAV, we'll show you how to get it. Don't worry about that. So we'll show you everything that you need to know. But basically, you start with Bitcoin, you buy DAV with that, and then then you loan them the DAV, and then these are the returns they're paying you. And it shows here, if you look up here on the top, depending on how much you loan, this is like how much the DAV is worth, like $100 to $1,000 worth of DAV. Then it pays you a different rate. And for those that lend between $100 and $1,000 worth of DAV coin, you get a daily variation rate. And down here it's showing you what that rate is. Now, when you take the money out, you're able to turn that back into Bitcoin. So understand, even though you're paying them with Bitcoin, and even though they're paying you back with basically DAV, and I'll break that down in more detail later, but basically they're paying you back in DAV, which you can turn back to Bitcoin. Obviously, you get to walk away with incredible returns that you can use however you want to in fiat currency. But we're operating in Bitcoin and DAV on their platform so that it's not a security. Okay, I'll talk more about that later, and the risks and how we minimize risks, all that stuff, and what happens if a regulator steps in and decides that all ICOs are securities and all that kind of stuff. I'll talk about that a little bit later. First, let's understand this. So down here at the bottom is what they paid this last week. So 0.91% on January 13, 1.48% on January 12th, a little over 1% on the 11th, a little over 1% on January 10th, 1.74%. These are the daily variation rate. So if you lend $100 to $1,000 worth of DAV, they hold that DAV for 299 days. And during those 299 days, you get the daily variation rate, which varies. And that's why I say there's no guarantee of earnings, because it varies. It depends on how well they're doing. But if you look historically, and they give you the 30-day average and their weekly average, and I'll show you inside the site where it shows that later, you can see it. It's all very transparent. So as you lend larger sums, like if you lend 1,001 to 5,000, then you get more percentage return, this is per day, on top of that. So if you lend, let's say 1,001, and it was January 12th, you don't just get the 1.48%, you'd also get another 0.1%, so you get 1.58% for 239 days. And then the contract expires, and at the end of that contract, they give you your original $1,001 back, which again is different from USI. For those of you in USI, you just got paid your daily returns. And by the way, in USI, you only got paid 5 days a week, not on the weekends. Here you get paid 7 days a week. So these are actually the days that you're getting paid. And then at the end, in USI, you didn't get your capital back. You got it back through the returns. It would accumulate, but then at the end, it was just over. And you got what you were paid daily from the percentage. Here, not only do you get these incredible daily returns, which are a lot higher than USI, at the end of this 239 days, you get your $1,001 back on top of that. Those who lend $5,001 worth of DAV to 10,000, they tack on 0.2% more on top of the daily variable rate. Those that lend $10,001 to 25,000 worth of DAV, and also it's a shorter period of time over here before you get your capital back. Then you get paid for 119 days, this daily variable rate plus 0.25% per day. Then after the 119 days, you get your $10,001 or $25,000, whatever you put in, back. And then for those that lend $25,001 up, you get an additional 0.35% on top of the daily variable rate. So I came in for the very first day on January 12th, And I had done over 25,001. I did $161,000 lend. I know not everybody can start there, guys. It's just, but that's the kind of seed money you're going to get and the confidence you're going to get. In my case, I did extremely well with a previous lending platform. I did end up putting about everything that I generated from it into coins, into an ICO, the same company that I earned the money from. But it gave me the confidence, I understand this now, to be able to take some other capital I had and beef up my portfolio. My point is, when you get involved, you start to understand and get these returns and realize it's a path towards 7 figures if you want that. And for those of you who have a low threshold for risk, come in with your entertainment money and just maximize what you can do with that, but make it extremely low risk for you, like no risk is your entertainment money, whatever. But understand that I know that not everyone's going to put in 161,000. I'm doing that because of my confidence. As you move forward and as you start to grow seed capital from this, start getting these returns and having more to work with, you start to become more confident too. But start with something really, really low if you have a low threshold. Or if $100 is a lot of money to you, obviously you don't want to put a lot in, but start with something so you start getting those returns is my suggestion. Again, I did 161,000, so I was in this category. So and I came in on January 12th, so I got 1.48% plus 0.35%. And I also did a little boost, which I'll talk about later, that gave me a little bit more. But got over 3,500 return in my first day, and I was like, wow. And then if you didn't do the boost, and this doesn't show the boost, but you could do like $25,001 or more and get your capital back, that 25,000 back after 89 days. Now I did a boost, so I got an even additional boost of interest per day, and I won't get mine back after 89 days, but that's okay. And in another video, maybe I'll have time today, I'll explain why I did that. And everyone has their own different strategies. I'm going to talk about strategy today. There's a calculator that makes this really easy to figure out. I know some of you are very familiar with these, others of you aren't yet. And I'll show you this today when I'm showing you different strategies, like how you can turn $100 into 10,000, or how you can turn 1,000 into 100,000, or 7-figure strategies. And I'll show you a little bit more about the strategy that I'm using. But basically, this is very helpful in helping you figure that out. You enter the amount in US dollar that you want to put in, so we have a reference point. It shows you what that amount is in DAV, because you're really lending DAV. And then, depending on the amount that you give, again, the calculator is showing you what percentage you would get. And I just kind of went over that and how long it would take before you got your original capital back. Now, I got to be really, really clear here, especially for those of you who were in USI. I said it, but I'm going to say it again. You're going to get your capital back from the daily returns pretty quickly, and the calculator kind of shows you that, or clearly shows you that. But after it's done, after the contract's over, after these days are over, you get your original capital back too. Pretty impressive. And again, for those of you who forgot what I said earlier, they're generating huge, huge profits on their own. Davor coin is, when you lend them that Davor coin, they're taking that and exchanging it for Bitcoin, or exchanging it more so for ICOs, for brand new ICOs that are launching. They obviously understand how to do that, or they would not have been able to launch their own coin and within about a month turn it into worth $1 billion market cap. They would not have known how to do. They obviously know what to do with the funds that we're lending them through DAV coin. Okay, so optional capital lock boost is what I chose. I actually added another 120 days onto mine and got that extra 0.1%. Anyway, this is just a snapshot of it. I'm going to show you this and how it shows you exactly how much you earn and everything. I'll do that in a minute. So let's look at it now. In fact, let's look at a strategy of turning $100 into $10,000. Now sit with me here, because there's so many different strategies. This one is $100, and I'll show you how I came up with 1.53% interest per day. I'll talk about what I mean by compounding through the reinvest daily for 304 days. Now, I know a lot of you that are experienced with this are going, oh, 304 days, I don't want to leave it in that long. I know others of you saying, oh, I don't like to do the compound reinvest. I'm going to talk about that. Sit with me if you're advanced and have that perception. I want people to understand what you could do. And I want, because it really starts a baseline. And of course, there's a lot of different things we can do. We can choose not to reinvest, and then we don't earn as much, but there's less risk. We can choose to get it much sooner and earn less. There's lots of options, but this gives us a baseline. And I will share the other options, the realistic options that are shorter number of days and so forth, for people that don't want to wait that long. I'm also going to talk about how I suggest for some of you, especially those of you living around the poverty line, who can scratch up $100 of entertainment money. You know, if it takes you, if that's 3 months of entertainment money or whatever, if you're really scratching it, it's an opportunity. And I'll talk about how you can employ maybe a strategy like this, if you're in that case, to be able to get into a return like this and possibly have some incredible seed money at the end of the road here of this contract, and then maybe do some shorter term strategies as well. So sit with me if you're advanced. I'm not saying that this is what everybody should do. I'm giving a baseline. So let's go look at this. How did I come up with the 1.53%? Let me go back into, this is my Davor Coin back office. You can all register for free and have access to this and play around with this, and I strongly encourage you to. Once you register, you come in here and click on lending. Let me just show you real quick. You click on lending, and I have lots of training videos for you to figure this out. But just to show you real quick, after you register, you come back here, go to lending here on the left, and then click on profit calculator. Again, I'll show you all this in other videos. I just want you to see the big picture of all of this in this comprehensive review today. Okay, so this is a dynamic version. So we enter $100 here for this example. And how did I come up with the 1.53? Let me close this real quick and show you. You see up here where it shows like what they paid this last week? In the profit calculator, down here, if you look at my cursor, expand the video and make it larger if you have trouble seeing this. For those of you who are beginners with technology, put your cursor on the video and you should see an icon in the lower right that you can click on that expands the size of the video, so you can see all this better. But right here it says profit estimation based on average lending interest rate, and it shows what the average it paid with its variable rate over the last 7 days and what its average was over the last 30 days. I feel like the last 30 days is a better representation of what it might be. We don't know that for sure. That's why there's no guarantees with all this stuff, right? We don't know what the variable rate's going to be, but we get a pretty good idea. Sometimes it's going to be higher, sometimes it's going to be lower. Again, like if you look on this particular day on January 9th, if you look up in the right, 1.74%. And then today was only 0.91%. It's going to fluctuate, but it's all incredible. Anyway, down here, you can choose. I'm going to show you how I came up with the, back to this slide, how I came up with, this and turning $100 into 10,000. I came up with 1.53%. I want you to understand it. So I feel that the last 30 days is a better representation of what it's going to do because it's a longer number of days. So that, I'm looking at that as the baseline. If it ended up being less, it's still incredible. But this is the number that I came up with because it's a longer number of days and seems like a better representation of what's possible. So 1.43% is what it says. And then again, I know some of you are more advanced. You argue, some of you do the capital lock, some say don't do the capital lock. I'm going to click on that for illustrative purposes. And again, I'll talk in more detail in a minute about other strategies and strategies without capital lock and all kinds of stuff. I just want to show this illustrative example of how to turn $100 into $10,000, and this is how I came up with this percentage. So 1.43% was the average variable rate it was paying over the last 30 days, plus 0.1% if you choose the 120-day capital lock. And if you do that on $100 worth of DAV, which is 0.8517 DAV, you're going to come up with only $641. So now why is that? Because this is for 299 days plus 120 days, and you didn't reinvest what you're earning back. You didn't reinvest what you're earning back. So in other words, as soon as you put this in, the next day you're going to start getting paid. If you go look at mine, you'll see that I've only joined a couple of days ago. I've already earned $8,360 in total from my lend. You're going to start seeing this accumulate as well with your lend. Obviously a lot smaller if you do $100, but it's going to start adding up. When you look at this calculator, it doesn't show you how much you would make in that time if you reinvest that back. So to turn, check this out, to turn $100 into $10,000 in 304 days, here's what you do. I just showed you how I got to the 1.53% interest. We go to this other calculator. And again, I teach you all this. Like, this isn't complicated. I'll show you how to, where you find this calculator. In this calculator, it shows you what you're going to get if you reinvest it back. That those funds you're getting every day, instead of taking it, if you want to get to the $10,000, check this out. I enter 100, was 304 days. It was 53% interest? Is that what it was? Yes. And then we say interest duration, 7 days a week, and then percent profit reinvest 100%. Now, I'm going to talk later with strategy how you could set this at 80% and take 20% of the money. You could do all kinds of things with this. You could reinvest half of what you're getting every day and take the other half. I'm going to say 100% because I just want to show you for illustrative purposes how to get to 10,000 from 100,000. I hit calculate. Sit with me, guys, because there's so many strategies here, and it's so important to understand what you can get out of this. And you can see here, it takes you to over 10,000. So $100 was just turned into 10,000 in 304 days if you decide to just keep reinvesting what you're getting per day. That's what the compound reinvest means for those duration of days. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, again, I don't want to do the compounding all along. I want to take some of that money. You can play with the calculator. After you register and come on in, you're going to be able to access our group. We'll show you how to access that calculator. You can even find one on your own and see how much would you get if you took half the money every day. Obviously then you wouldn't have 10,000 at 304 days, but you'd still have a lot. Okay, let's look at the next illustrative example. It starts to get exciting. Turn $1,001 into 100,000 in 285 days. We get to the 1.63% because you might remember that when we looked in here at the calculator, when you put in $1,001, you get another 0.1%. So that boosted us up to 1.63% when we also do the capital lock at 120 days. But this calculator here doesn't show, inside the back office of Davor Coin, doesn't show you how much you get if you take the money that you're getting and keep reinvesting it. So I'm going to go back to the other calculator, which again, once you get registered, you come into our group, which I'll show you at the end of this. We'll show you all these resources, and we talk about all this. We talk about all these other strategies. But let's just show you this real quick. We put 1,001 in worth of DAV. The interest rate now is 1.63%. The term was it 285 days? It was a less number of days. Yeah, 285 days. So we're getting paid on it 7 days a week. Again, I'm going to go ahead and, for illustrative purposes, to show you how to turn about $1,000 into 100,000 in only 285 days, I'm going to put that we're 100% reinvesting, that we're taking everything that we're getting per day and putting it back in. I want you to know that you could come here and you could see, okay, what if I took half of my earnings per day and I went and spent that on bills or whatever, and I put the other half back in, what would I end up with? You can do all of that, but I just want to show you this for illustrative purposes. You can play with the calculator. But I'm going to hit calculate, and boom, scroll down. So now we see total principal, deposit plus profit over 285 days, 100,388. So we have turned $1,001 into 100,000 in 285 days. Let's look at the 7-figure strategy. I'm not going to go back to the calculator. You can do that on your own if you want to. But if you were to be able to start with $25,001, which, by the way, you could build up to, right? You could start with 1,000 and start to build up to getting 25,000. Play with the calculator, see how to do all of this. You can set your goals and accomplish them very quickly. Let's say you put in $25,000 and $1, you would be at 1.88% interest because you get paid a higher percentage interest when you put in the 25,000. And through the compound reinvest, as I showed you with that calculator, for 199 days, you would beat over 7 figures, 1 million in 199 days. Now, again, I know a lot of you are saying, oh, I don't want to reinvest every day. I want to take a percentage of it. Well, then just decide to take 50% per day and just put the other 50% back in, or take 70% or 80% or 90% per day, almost everything you're generating, and just invest 30 or 20 or 10% back. Play with the calculator, see where you end up, and create a strategy that makes sense for you. But it's absolutely incredible. Now I want to talk about minimizing risk and maximizing gains. So we're going to go into strategies now that minimize risk and maximize gains. So here's what I suggest, and you choose the one that makes the most sense for where you're at with your, your risk threshold, with where you're at personally in your life and what your goals are. Again, you should never risk more than you're willing to lose in any endeavor. I do believe that what we have here is the safest way to see significant returns, life-changing returns. So even if you have to scrap together $100 from your entertainment money, 3 months of entertainment money if you're on the poverty line, collecting pop cans, knocking on doors, consider it to change your life if that's where you're at. If you can't drum up $100, if that's hard for you, then obviously there's issues going on with you in terms of, are you willing to do what it takes to turn your life around? You got to make those decisions. What I'm saying is I don't believe that anybody, even on the poverty line, and I used to be there many years ago, that's where I started. My first investment into a business led me to having an eviction notice because I couldn't cover my rent. And I knew that going into it. And of course I did pay it in time. Scary, it was hard. I'm not telling you to do that. I just know what it's like to be on the poverty line. And now, being able to raise my kids in an affluent lifestyle and go to, wonderful schools in a wonderful neighborhood and experience everything life has to offer by traveling places and so forth, it was worth it. It was definitely worth it. You have to make those decisions, but I just don't believe anybody who says they can't scrape together $100 or that somehow that's impossible. So I just suggest considering, it might take you 3 months if you're in extreme poverty line, in a developing country. But consider $100 on auto reinvest, leave it for 304 days, and let that build up to 10,000. Because if $100 is hard for you to scrape together, then 10,000 would be life changing. Now I sit with me here because I know a lot of you are like, well, what if something happens? 3 and 4 days is a long time. I'm gonna address that. Or consider $1,001 on auto reinvest and leave for 285 days, leads you to 100 grand. Again, sit with me here because I have an additional strategy layered on top of this. I'm suggesting you choose one of these, and then I've got something else for you in the next slide that you do in addition to it. And then I'm going to address regulation, risks, SEC, all this stuff. Or you can consider, choose 5,001 on auto reinvest and leave for 179 days. That's 90,000. But you're getting in a shorter period. Again, 501,000 on auto reinvest and leave for 179 days. That's 90 grand. You've turned that 5 grand into in 179 days. Now, some of you may consider the 7-figure strategy I reviewed. If you can put in 25 grand, I put in 161 grand. But you could follow that strategy I just gave you, and that was a very short number of days, right? So 7-figure strategy, 25,000 over 199 days brought you to $1 million. Now you can modify that, of course. Like maybe you don't want to wait 199 days to get to $1 million. Maybe you'll stop early and take 250 grand. Modify my strategy, get out the calculator, register, come on in, play with the calculator. But I would suggest choosing one of these strategies up here, or if you've got larger sums to play with, modifying the 7-figure strategy to the length of days that you feel comfortable with, and going for a bigger amount. But I would suggest, with that in mind, choosing one of these strategies. And then on top of that, consider employing a shorter term strategy. So choose from one of the above and then consider a short-term strategy as well. So for example, if $100 isn't a lot for you to lose, you got a low risk threshold, throw in $100, put it on auto reinvest, leave it for 304 days and see it get to 10 grand, and then employ maybe a shorter term strategy on top of that. If 5,000 or if $1,000 investment isn't such a big risk to you, sorry, my slides are coming up really slow. Which one was that? If $1,000 isn't that big of a risk to you, then choose that one and just leave it and forget it. Or maybe you want to go for a variation of the 7-figure strategy. But then on top of one of these options, you can employ shorter term strategies layered on top of this. So you can choose one of those, and then in addition to that, you can either lend a larger sum up front for just 89 days, like I did. I put in 161 grand. I actually added, but I actually didn't do that one because I extended it. So if you want that back sooner, let's say you do a $25,000 investment, or it's relative, right? If a $5,000 lend to you is a lot, then that's what I mean by larger sum. But what I'm saying is, you can choose a larger sum and get it back sooner and not do the reinvestment, so that you can start getting the seed money faster, get your capital back, and then use that seed money for other opportunities or to pay for things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to in the short run, while the other strategy is working for you in the behind the scenes. Or you could lend a smaller amount for a shorter number of days and do no rebuy. So for example, maybe you don't want to risk a larger sum. So you put in 100 if that's plenty for you, 1,000 if that's plenty for you, whatever a small amount is for you. What I'm saying is you can layer it on top of the other strategy. The other strategy is working for you on active rebuy, they call it, for a longer period of days. That's working for you. But then to minimize risk, you could do a smaller amount on top of that and be getting some return so you can get what you put into it back right away. Does that make sense? So you can get what you put back as soon as possible. Or you could lend a large or small sum, but the point is be on partial rebuy, and I've talked about that already. That's where you can play with that calculator. That's where you set it up for a shorter number of days, and then you rebuy with 80% and you keep 20% per day of what's coming in. So you have money that you're keeping. But then you're also building a larger return. You can play with that calculator to see how this would work. Or you can do a 70-30 split or a 50-50 split. This was supposed to say 20-80. Like you could literally just take 20% and reinvest 80% back. You can play with that calculator. Let me go do that real quick. You can play with that calculator and say, okay, like what if I put in 5,001, and I can't remember exactly what that interest was, but let's just say it's somewhere around 1.63%. That's reasonable. And then what's the number of days? We go look at the calculator. The number of days on 5,000 is 179. So you could say, okay, let's leave it in for 179 days, and let's not do a boost. Again, let's not do that boost where we add more days to it. Uncheck all of that. You could play with the calculator and see what would it be like on this percent profit reinvest. What would it be like if I kept 50% per day of the returns, but I went ahead and re-lended the other 50% in returns? Where would I end up? And in this case, 179 days with a $5,001 investment, you end up with you'd turn the 5,000 into 37,764 in a short period of time. And the point is, in this case, you'd be taking the daily returns as you do it. So for example, when you look in my back office, I signed up on January 9th, and today I haven't got paid on the 13th yet, so I've been paid on the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. In that time, I've earned 8,300. So that's, what's that, 2, 4, 6, about $2,000 a day average. Is that what that is? I think it's actually more than that. But let's just say that that's what it is. I thought it was more than that, but let's say it's $2,000 per day. I don't know if I've been paid yet on this one. But my point right now is, you look here, you'll look here and see that you're earning every day. And if you decided just to take half of that and reinvest it per day, then you get to keep half of what's coming in, and this calculator will show you what would you end up getting. Or you could say, let's say I only reinvest 30%. So you put in 5,000 and you only reinvest 30%, and you keep, let's say you decide to keep 70%. Again, your amount would be different, obviously, depending on what you invest, but it would show up here and you get to keep it, and you keep 30% of what's coming in. What would you be able to walk away with? And this shows you, how much that you walked away with. So you can play around with this and see if you want to keep some of the money and not reinvest it all in order to minimize some of that risk. You can do that. But you can play with that calculator and figure that out. Okay, so let me expand this back out. I'm going to go into the risks and regulators here in a second, but actually let me go back up for a second. I want to reiterate everything that we just went over. Let me see if I can get back to, okay, so I'm really suggesting you do two strategies, that you choose from the first set of strategies so you can move towards a large sum of returns, and that you do whatever you're comfortable with there. And then you do a second strategy that pays larger returns up front to you, so you get your capital back right away, so you minimize risk. So again, one strategy was turn $100 into 10,000. I showed you how to do that. The other was turning 1,000 into 100,000. I showed you how to do that. Another was the 7-figure strategy, taking 25,000 and in 199 days turning it into 1,000,000, or doing a variation of that, maybe taking it out sooner than 199 days and not quite getting to 1,000,000, but getting to something extraordinary. So there's one of those strategies. And then I talked about, okay, consider doing that, and then on top of it, employing one of these shorter term strategies. So you choose one of those other ones, and then on top of that, choose one of these shorter term strategies that will allow you, to get the returns back, for example, in 89 days, if you can do a large sum. Or if you can't do a larger sum of like 25,000, then do a smaller amount, but you're going to get it in a much shorter number of days, and don't do a rebuy. Or I said, or you could choose do a partial rebuy, and then you're taking some of the funds every day to make sure you get back your capital you put into it, but still reinvesting back, so you're maximizing what you can get out of this. So you could, again, choose which one that you want to do, but that's one way to minimize risk. Let's talk about risks and regulators. I know a lot of you that are more advanced know that the SEC is sniffing around the entire ICO industry. Banks don't like it because they're getting cut out. They like the stock market model where they got most of the money and everyone else got very little. They've got all their advantages in the stock market with their programs and their software, and they're using computers to trade against us, and they're doing extraordinarily well. And they made it so complicated now that it's very difficult for your average ordinary person, of course, to ever be able to get their company on the stock market. It requires all kinds of costs and challenges and hoops to jump through, where the big business gets their cuts, and the regulators are very much involved with all of that, of course, making it all kinds of red tape to get in. They like that game, they like that racket, right? And of course, then they got hedge funds and IRAs and all this stuff. It's all set up to make them lots of money, and we get a very small percentage, and we're supposed to be happy. Now the ICOs come along, and it's open to everybody. It's global, it's international, and the regulators don't know what to do with it. And they're trying to figure it out. But I got to tell you, just got to kind of put things together and realize, okay, first of all, Goldman Sachs just announced that they put together a team to invest in ICOs. So when you see big banks getting involved, that's definitely actually going to help us in the short run, because they're just trying to obviously make profit on it right now. That's where they're at. They're trying to figure out how they're going to regulate it and everything. The regulators are, but they're working with the banks to figure it out. They're trying to, of course, over time, to try to figure out how they can make it so that the banks make bigger money than we do, and that we have to go through them in some way. But that's going to take a long time for them to sort out, because this is international in scale, and they have to be very, very careful, and they know it. They can't just cut the US off completely, or we won't be the Silicon Valley of the world anymore. Silicon Valley and what happened with the internet boom benefited the United States tremendously. Where technological advance takes place is where there's security in terms of, military security. Like if we didn't have, if some other country had the Silicon Valley advantage 20 years ago, we wouldn't be in the military advantage we were, obviously, because it's all moving towards, spying on, internet systems and all that kind of stuff, and being able to shut down countries' electric grids and all that, and being able to combat that. That's where it's all going. And they know that. So they can't just take measures that are going to completely cut the US out of innovation and allow other countries to dominate. You got to understand that. You have to be very, very careful. So that's one thing that's going to slow down them just putting a stomp on everything. It's going to be like China or something. China shut down Facebook and didn't allow Facebook to be there. US isn't going to take that kind of action. It's not good for the US brand. I mean, I know they're doing a lot of things that aren't good for their brand, but that's just like a whole nother level. That's moving from the police state to the fascist state. They're not gonna go there that fast. They're gonna be calculated about it, because they don't want to risk the military's strength and hold in the world, and our security from that perspective. And they're not going to want to knock off the United States dominance in terms of technological innovation and advancement. Now they're risking it already, because they're already making it more difficult and making some organizations uncomfortable letting us get onto ICOs, but they're not clamping down like hard, like making it so it's impossible to do. And I really don't see that happening in the short term for that reason. They don't want to stomp out completely the United States, position in the economy worldwide. It would be absolutely insane, and it would hurt their interests. So, because they want our tax dollars, they want us to be, they don't want to push us into, a third world country. So, or even to be at a major disadvantage. So that's one thing. The other thing is just the complexity of putting it together. Every time they start to get their mind wrapped around it, their attorneys and everything around the industry and how they might be able to patch up loopholes, a new loophole crops up, a new innovation of the blockchain or a new use of all of this is invented in making it impossible for them to nail down and sum up. It's going to take a long time, is my point. Now that's the big picture. Let's talk about what can happen state by state, because some of the states aren't smart enough to pay attention to those kinds of things, and they're just going to go after obvious, easy, low-hanging fruit to feel like that their job is important. And that recently happened in Texas with USI, and also Texas did it to Bitcoin, where they said cease and desist. There was no court order saying we can seize your bank accounts. Like, they need to go through a completely different legal process for that, but they were able to see enough in USI's case, and I'm sure in Bitcoin's as well. I know more about USI's. They were able to, which was another platform out there, they were able to see enough where distributors were representing it as a security in the state of Texas. So for example, they were advertising on Craigslist. So Texas was like, oh, this is our territory because you're advertising on Craigslist specifically to people in Texas. So as long as you don't go marketing to people in individual states, like for example, we have a system in place that you can just plug into and use if you want to promote this. You don't have to, but this is what happened to USI. They had people that were promoting it so that they could generate additional, Bitcoin in USI's case for their promotional efforts. And Texas didn't like it. They went after, people that were promoting in Texas, and they sent a cease and desist to USI, and USI decided to pull out of Canada and the United States, but they're still in the rest of the world. And that's what you have to understand. They're still in the rest of the world, and they're still paying back everybody that has their money locked up in there. It is a risk. Of course it's a risk. But I want you to understand that the regulators have to be careful. And in the case of USI, the distributors were definitely making guarantees. You heard me today, it's all about language. You heard me today tell you that these aren't guarantees. What they did wrong was they made a guarantee. It was a blatant, in-your-face, ridiculous claim that they were making. They didn't make it clear that there's these variable rates, there's variations that could happen, that there's some risks involved, and they just made a blatant guarantee. And whenever you do that and you're targeting a state, like they did on Craigslist, you're going to see an issue. Okay, so that's what happened there. I want to address it. Why do I feel so safe with Davor Coin in this turbulent industry? First, we need to go back to what I said earlier. During the internet boom, there was all kinds of new regulation that needed to be written. There were all kinds of things changing, opportunities that were fantastic one day, and the next day they were looking at a new regulatory policy that was going to change their market and model. It was happening all the time. What you need to understand is all throughout history, this is the case. Wherever there are big returns and big opportunities, there's going to be that turbulence. You've got to become fluid with it. Again, don't invest more than you can lose. Understand what you're getting involved with in that regard, but understand that if you don't get involved in that regard, you'll never have big returns anywhere. It's never going to change. Whenever there is a developing industry, that's going to be the case. I do not believe that there is a safer, lower risk way to get these kinds of returns that there ever has been in the past or ever will be again than there is right here. Does that mean there's no risk? Of course not. What's funny is it's only the regulators that create the risk right now. That's what's really incredible. I'll have another video out that talks about how risky our fiat currency is, the US dollar is, counting on your retirement money still being there in 20 years, paying $80,000 and having your children get huge student debt, thinking that there's going to be some kind of great job at the end of the rainbow. These are the scams of our world. The Federal Reserve getting rid of all the gold. People buy into those every day because we're conditioned to. What you have to understand is the worst scams in the cryptocurrency market are nothing in terms of the scams that we're all perpetuating every day with our institutions. And in fact, the blockchain technology itself is challenging all of that. And there's nothing that they can do to stop that in the end, because it's decentralizing. And they're all going to have to adopt this some way or another. It's going to take them forever to figure out what to do, how to regulate it. And in the end, they're going to realize they can't fully regulate it to the point of removing the decentralized nature of blockchain. That's why it's so exciting. That's why it's so big. And all I can say to those of you with low risk threshold is, yes, there's going to be these waves and these shifts and these tides, and regulators will come in, and all kinds of things will happen, just like it did in the internet boom. But if you can't figure out how to navigate that, or worst case scenario, if you can't take some entertainment money, like every couple of months, take a percentage of your entertainment money and put it into an opportunity of this scale and scope, then you'll never, ever, ever be able to take advantage of any kind of amazing opportunity. You shouldn't even be listening right now. But those of you that, at the very least, even if you have low risk threshold, at the very least, you're able to find some entertainment money and take a percentage of that and start putting it into this incredible opportunity, starting with Davor coin. And as we go forward, I can show you how to take advantage of other opportunities as well. And as things change and so forth, becoming fluid with that, you can make a fortune. For some of you with a low threshold of risk, a small fortune. For some of you with a higher threshold for risk, an incredible fortune. And a fortune for future generations. Just employing the strategy I showed you today, $100, it's not a huge risk for 99% of the people that have access to this video. And yet it has an opportunity for incredible gains. And like I say, if you take both strategies, you choose the long-term strategy for larger gains, and then you also do a shorter-term strategy so you can get your capital back. We're really not talking about incredible risk here. So that should be clear by now. What I want you to know is, because Davor coin is secured by their own coin, and because they already launched it, I feel this is extremely secure in that regard, because they're now sitting on $1 billion market cap. So on paper, their cryptocurrency is worth over $1 billion with a B right now. And it's going up and it's strong. As we've seen from Bitconnect, for those of you that know about Bitconnect, it's only going to continue to grow. The model works. It's a whole new model where it's secured by its own Bitcoin. And they create the demand for the Bitcoin because in order to participate, you have to purchase Davcoin. In order to withdraw, you have to first purchase Davcoin. So it creates a really stable, solid model that we've never seen before in history before Bitcoin, but now they're cropping up everywhere because they're so powerful. And any company like Davor coin that has the ability to launch their own coin and bring it to $1 billion market cap is very, very secure in my book, and knows what they're doing. But again, is secure in the sense that if a regulator like Texas did step in, which I think is far less likely with Davor coin, and I'll explain that in a different video. It's a completely different conversation, but from the way the compensation plan is structured and the way the company handles itself, less in the spotlight, less promoting so heavily to associates that blab their mouth and don't know how to communicate, push the opportunity. Because they're not doing that, like USI did, it's far less likely someone's going to do a Craigslist ad and target Texas and say something stupid like, we guarantee these returns. Just very unlikely to happen here. But let's say it did. Let's say it did, and Texas sent a cease and desist to Davor coin. Well, they could do what Bitcoin did and just shut off Texas. And USI pulled completely out. Let's say that they overreact like USI and they pull completely out of the US. Let's say worst case scenario that happened. They're sitting on over $1 billion that they can sell. Now that's, if they start selling that much, obviously it wouldn't be $1 billion, but hundreds of millions of dollars they have access to that they could easily cover whatever we have in there and pay us what they owe us until what we have in there contract ends. And you can get these incredible returns like I talked about with these strategies today. And we can know they have the capital to do it. And we know that they will do it because they can still do business around the world. Bitcoin just closed down Texas when they got their cease and desist, and their company didn't get shaked up from it. Their coin, their Bitcoin, didn't dip down significantly. So we know based on Bitcoin, it's a solid model, and that if the worst case scenario did happen, and a regulator, and Texas is the only one in the US that's been a problem. If Texas had an issue with the way that somebody was representing Davor coin and decided to go after the entire company because of it, which is ludicrous, we know by looking at what already happened to Bitcoin that it's not a big deal because the company has so much funding behind it, and that they're not going to just close their doors over some little rift like that. If they had to close their doors in the US, they would still pay us, and they have the funds to do it. Again, if you're ever going to take advantage of any opportunity, just like at any other point in history or ever in the future, it's going to be turbulent. You're going to have to be fluid. You have to go in with eyes wide open. And if you can do that and you just invest what you're willing to lose, you can do extremely well. But if you don't, then what can I say? Uh, you will never ever break out of the financial situation you're in. If you don't know right now how you're ever going to have a good retirement, you will never have a good retirement if you don't do this. Do you think the banks and the regulators, the people on the top politically and so forth, you don't think this is their daily life to be navigating the unknown? This is where the money is. And you now have an opportunity to participate in that at a very low level. It usually takes millions to participate in that world. You now have an opportunity to do that at a very low level. So I don't know what else to say, but to say, I mean, there it is. It is secured by $1 billion market cap. They have hundreds of millions of dollars. So if the worst case scenario happened, which is far less likely and probably pretty far out than it was for USI, and this company is only 2 months old, and I'll have in another video why I feel strongly that that is not going to happen. But even if it did, they're secured to be able to pay you back what they owe you and go continue business internationally where innovation is still in existence. I don't know what else to say. If you can't even get together entertainment money that you spend and put a percentage of that into this new era of cryptocurrency, there'll never be an opportunity for you that changes your life financially in any serious way. Now, most of today I spent discussing how you can use strategies for lending Davcoin to them and getting these incredible returns and accomplishing some incredible goals. But I do want you to know, that my expertise is business systems, educating people. I do it in a very candid way, very transparent, level-headed way. And I think because of that, it's a big, and just my experience with it and understanding the simplicity of it. When you find the right opportunities at the right time, being able to educate people about it. I think because of that, I've been extremely successful, not just myself, but the people I share my systems with. So those of you who want to, you can actually earn additional cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Davcoin, turn that into fiat currency, obviously, by using my system. And so just real quick here, let me see if I can find it. By the way, I'm going to come back to that. This is a picture of the Davcoin. You see how it's going up? This is just the last hour. This just shows you like how strong the company is going to be. And this is very similar to Bitconnect, but much, much faster because Bitconnect already trained, hundreds of thousands of people about this new model over the past year or so, or even more than a year. Let's look at this. Check this out. This is Dav. This is the Davcoin on an external exchange. They're on an external exchange. This is just showing the actual price. Let me show you what happens if I select this for 1 month, just the last month. Look how it's going straight up. And I know a lot of people are like, just like with Bitcoin, well, if it's going straight up, it's going to go straight down. No, guys, they've created the demand. Bitconnect already proved this model. If we go to Bitconnect, let me see if I can pull that up really quick. You can see just how strong this model is. I'll let you, actually, you know what? I had that, did I already close it? I had Bitconnect. Oh yeah, I had a slide on it. I showed it to you earlier. Bitconnect has gone up to about $140. Davcoin's brand new, but they already have $1 billion market cap. They are strong, they are solid. It just launched. It's absolutely incredible what now funding they have access to be able to deal with any issues, any challenges. That really secures our funds that we put in there to a great real degree. Really important to understand that. A couple of the things I want to show you, then I'll get back to the marketing system. They've got this roadmap, where they break down what they're going to do in the first quarter, what they're going to do in the second quarter. It's very, very impressive, and they've been hitting all of their milestones so far. That's something else very different from other companies, including USI, that I didn't see, where these guys actually hit their roadmap, and they already have their coin out, and their funding's already there. Very big difference. I wanted to show you the affiliate program. For those that want to use my system, I can teach you, I can show you, and I can give you the same funnel I use to be able to refer people. You're educating people about this and all the opportunities and everything, the follow-up emails and everything that I create, and you get a percentage on when others come in and they lend. And it's significant. If you look at my account, again, my earnings are not representative of what you're going to get, but it's my earnings, so it's all I got to show you to show that it works. I joined just a couple of days ago, and you can see in my lending wallet I have 26,000. 8,360 of that in the last couple of days was made from my return on capital from what I put in. The rest, 18,000 came from referring people. So my system definitely works. Doesn't mean you're going to make exactly what I make. Your results are going to depend on, how much you promote it and who you refer it to. But I can show you a lot of that stuff, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. One of the first things that I do, we can build a funnel for you. We call it our VIP system. But you do need to meet certain requirements to get into that VIP system. Like, for example, you need to do a lend. And at the time of this recording, we haven't decided how much of a lend you need to do. It's going to be very, very low. We just want to make sure that people that are involved are representative of success and that you've done some kind of lend. So just get back in touch with the person who referred you to find out what the requirements are. But something that's open for the VIP and to get the funnel built for you and to do the more elaborate version of this if you really want to build, huge returns with the affiliate program. But for those that just want to kind of just come into it nice and easy, not make any big commitments, this other option of the help that you get is free, and you don't even need to do a lend to plug in. And that's where we add you to our Bitcoin multiplier group, and you get lots of training and everything. And one of the things I can show you how to do, which is free, is set up a YouTube account, and you can literally use my videos to upload to your account and then put your link on it. And you can see I know what I'm doing. I mean, this video has 47,000 views that I loaded just 2 weeks ago. This one I loaded 2 days ago, 801 views, 794, 1,000, 1,500. And you can use my videos, my same exact videos, load them up, and I show you how to title them. You don't want to title them exactly as I do. I show you, though, what you do need to do so they come up and you get exposure. And we can target people in Bitconnect. We can target leaders. And you can do it completely stealth if you wanted to. You can have, I'm happy to be out in front. Maybe you don't want to be out in front. Maybe you have a large organization, something else, or you're not quite sure yet, but you'd like to maybe tap into some of these returns. They pay down 5 levels, 8% on the first, 4% on the second. It's not as strong as like USI's was. I'll talk in another video why this is a better model for safety and security long term, with this model. And I just showed you that it can pay very, very high. Again, my earnings aren't indicative exactly of what you'll earn, but obviously I know what I'm doing, and you get to use the same system I'm doing. And I have literally helped in a previous organization, literally helped hundreds, and I do mean many hundreds of people generate significant sums of Bitcoin using a very similar system. I know what I'm doing, and I can certainly help you do that on VIP, or at the very least, with no obligation or anything to you, you can start doing it for free, just kind of taking my stuff, and I show you how to do all of that. So I talked about the VIP group. That's for those that do a certain lend amount. At the time of this recording, I haven't decided yet exactly what that lend amount will be, but it'll be very, very low, just so we know that you're using the system. And then I'll build you a funnel. My team will build you a funnel, the same exact one I'm using, and I'll teach you how to get it out there so you can get referrals and get incredible returns on this affiliate program. So again, even if you don't understand all of that, even if you don't want to participate in that, I strongly, strongly encourage you at the very least. And by the way, this is a snapshot of just the lead capture page that you get built and people come in. If you're part of our VIP, and they get follow-up emails, and I'm educating them, but it would be leading them to your Davor Coin affiliate link so you could receive those commissions. But even if you don't want to participate in that, at the very, very least, register in Davor Coin. That's free. You might see a button on this page that takes you right in, and you can register, and then you have access to the back office and the calculator and everything. You start poking around. And then I have training. I'll talk about that in a minute that helps you get plugged in really easy. But register for free in Davor Coin. If you don't see the button on this page, and just get back to the person who referred you, and they'll give you their link and come on in. One way or another, once you're registered, and if you're having trouble registering, reach out to your sponsor, reach out to the person who referred you. They're your guide, they're your lifeline. They're the ones who can help you figure out everything that I covered and more. They're the ones that can help you figure out how to plug in and how to do stuff when you run into challenges. So definitely reach out, let them know who you are. When you register into Davor Coin, you should see their name somewhere. Or some kind of username, some kind of identifier, but hopefully you know how to reach them already. Definitely do that because they can help you tremendously. Let them say hi, let them know that you're registered so you can have access to stuff. And I would suggest that you ask them to put you on their email list so they can be in touch with you, because I send stuff out to that email list as well to help you. And then step 3, so register for free in Davor Coin. Again, a link could be on this page. If you don't see it, reach out to them. Reach out to your sponsor regardless and say hi and let them know you registered and that you're interested in some help or you have questions. And then step 3, join our group. We call it the Bitcoin Multiplier Group. There might be others that stole that name, so don't just go searching it on Facebook. But your sponsor will give you the exact link to our group that I just showed you, where we can help you with so much stuff. In there, one of the things that we have are step-by-step, really easy to follow tutorials. I mean, literally easy as step 1, 2, 3, videos that are under, some of them under 5 minutes, some of them under 10 minutes, that get you set up. Like, how do you get Bitcoin? How do you get Dav coin? How do you lend? Where do you see the money start showing up that you're earning? What's it all mean? How do you withdraw it? All of that stuff, it's all here. And you just, start by registering free, reach out to your sponsor, join our group, and then ask for those tutorials, or you'll find them in the group, and just be on your way and start with something you're comfortable with. I just suggest choose a strategy. Choose a strategy you're comfortable with that I talked about earlier today, with an amount you feel comfortable with, just to get started. Start with what you're comfortable doing. Don't do any more. I'm just saying, just get in the game with what you can do. And once you're settled in, remember to ask your sponsor about our VIP program, because I definitely know how to make systems. They're very candid, very put together, extremely simple, but extremely effective results. And because we do all the building the funnel for you and everything, and we just lead everybody to your Davor coin referral link, it's a great way to get a whole nother level of funds coming in, which you can then again use to invest into ICOs and the other things you're going to be learning about, or use to do a bigger reinvestment or a bigger lend into Davor coin. So that's it for now, guys. Again, follow these steps and don't procrastinate.